Okay. Beat 'em. Let me show y'all boys where I'm from, man.
Hey, man, say, man, what it do? Still with the camp. Sound like a little big boss hog. Boss dog. Can't pull through the door. Here to talk this boss. Fuck him, that's a little bit. Them two-time don't like good people, they don't know if yourself, man. Call that mental health hotline, remember you matter. Peak game, 84 is on what's Wayne. Floyd Schofield, man, he pulls out of his fight with JoJo Diaz. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss this foolishness. So Floyd Schofield, man, he got a hand or wrist injury and he pulled out his fight with JoJo Diaz. And he's facing a lot of backlash because this is the second fight he's pulled out of. Y'all forget he pulled out the Shakur Stevenson fight, right? He pulled out of that fight and pulled out that fight with an illness, you know, and that illness right there, basically, he accused Shakur Stevenson of having his masseuse putting some ointment on him and he got sick. Now he got this wrist injury. So a lot of people are like, man, you running from smoke, right? Now let me throw my 2 cents on there. Shout out to 2 cents box. If the dude is really injured, I don't really have much to say. I'm not going to speak on his injury. I'm going to say this, though it does look bad. It does look bad from a perspective of the fact, like that brother right there, you know, you got a big fight coming up against JoJo Diaz. JoJo Diaz, although he lost, he put on a good performance against Reach Prograde. You understand me? So, you understand, like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. You know, so just, I understand it from a boxing fan's perspective. You're like, bro, why you keep pulling out these fights, right? Why do you keep pulling out these fights, boy? But on a serious note, why do you keep pulling out these fights? You know what I'm saying? Like, you looking like Ryan Garcia used to look. You know, pull out king, man. Pause. You looking like how Shakur, was looking. Pull out king. Pause. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to keep it 1,000. Right? At the end of the day, when you analyze everything, put a bow on it, it's like, it's not looking good. I'm not going to speak on his injury, right? I'm not in his body. I don't know, but I'm just saying it don't help his brand that he keep, getting these injuries and pulling out these fights, right? And he's getting trained by his dad. So it make you be like, okay, whatever he's doing, maybe he needs another set of eyes in his camp from another coach. I'm not trying to fire his dad, but what I'm saying is maybe he needs another set of eyes because maybe he's doing too much, right? There could be a thing of overtraining, or maybe he's not doing something right, right? When you start getting injured and stuff like that, like granted, you're going to have in camp, you're going to get little ticky-tack injuries. You're going to get tennis elbow. You're going to, your shoulder, or, the normal stuff, your knee, your hip, you know what I'm saying? Like the normal stuff. You're going to get that. But, when you start getting injuries to the point where, like, your hand, you hurt your hand, you're not punching correctly, right? And that's a fundamental flaw. You know what I'm saying? So you got to fix that. And it's just like, I said the same thing about Shakur, right? Shakur keep getting all these injuries to his hands, and I'm like, because he's not punching correctly with his hand, right? He's not punching with the right part of his hand. How do I know that? Because that's what happened to me a couple of weeks ago, right? Sometimes you can hurt your hand when you punch it with the wrong part of your hand. So you punching with like this part, right? You land a punch with this part. You want to be landing like up here, like, you know what I mean? Up here. I can't, you know what I mean? You don't want to be punching, with this part. And a lot of time these dudes, they don't fully turn it over, or, it's a lot. You got to slow it down and focus on the technique, and that's what separated the old school fighters from these fighters. Is these fighters want to look flashy and look a certain way, you know what I'm saying? The old school fighters, yeah, they look flashy, but in training camp or, you know, whatever, they slowing it down. They focusing on their feet and they drilling their feet work. They drilling it. The boring stuff. They drilling throwing a tooth, right? And making sure they turning that hand over, right? Or they're drilling when they get on a hand pass. You know, back then they ain't have hand pads. So, you know, in the 80s, you know, 70s, 80s, hand pads, I think they were coming into the fold. I don't think every fighter was using hand pads. They were using just a heavy bag, right? So they was working on throwing a jab, right? They made their many rounds throwing a jab, turning their hand over, you know, different type of jabs, making sure they turning that, you know what I mean? The rotation, right? Making sure their foot and their hand are in unison, right? Turning that 2 over, turning that 3 over, turning that 4 over, right? They perfected the fundamentals, right? And I just think that could be, I'm not saying that's the case with Floyd Schofield. I just say it could be, right? I'm not in his camp, I don't know, but that could be, right? I think it may be a little bit of overtraining too, right? Because he want to look a certain way. And it's like, that's cool, you can look, you know, but at the end of the day, like, as I get older, you know, because I ain't gonna lie, when I got into boxing, I was into all that. I'm like, man, I want to look, when they, you know, when they see me exploding on this bag. Pause. Big pause on that. That was crazy work. But, you know, they see me, I'm cracking. You know, boom, 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 putting a wreck on the bag. Now, bro, like, when I talk to my partner that, you know, on my fighter, I'm like, man, it's not about looking, bro. It's about being the part. We're going to make sure that we know the fundamentals, and we're going to make sure we do this the right way. So we're going to do the boring stuff, right? We ain't here to look cute. You know what I'm saying? That ain't what we do. You know what I mean? My coaches tell me that. We ain't here to look cute. I don't want to do nothing. That's why, like, that's the hand pass stuff Floyd be doing. It look all right, but that's not realistic. You know, I get it. It helps you with your reaction, but that ain't realistic. We gonna do stuff that symbolizes a real fight, right? So my coach on the hand pass, he boom, 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 instead of we ain't doing that, right? It look cool, right? I ain't hating on nobody that do it. It look cool, but nah, we gonna symbolize a real fight. You know, bah, 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 bah. You know, bah, 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 slip, bah, bah. You know what I mean? That's what we gonna do. So I don't know. I just think it's more of a training thing with Floyd Schofield. Why he keep getting all these injuries, right? It sucks because I was excited to see him fight JoJo Diaz. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wanted to see, you know, what he was gonna do with JoJo Diaz. It would have been a good, you know, win because JoJo Diaz is a name. Although he's like kind of over the hill, you know, he's coming off a good performance. Although he lost, he's coming off a good performance against Regis Prograis. I felt like, you know, him getting this type of fight against JoJo Diaz, this would, you know, he helped continue to build his brand and his profile, right? But then boom, he get injured, he pull out. Pause. So we shall see. You know, best of wishes to Floyd Schofield. I do hope that he feels better. You know what I mean? And you know, if I was him, I would still try to fight JoJo Diaz. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'll be like, hey man, let's push the fight back, but let's fight. I feel like that's a good fight. JoJo Diaz is tough. I feel like, you know, these the type of fights that can build a fighter. You know what I mean? This is what I'm talking about when you talk about building a fighter and helping a fighter grow. Taking these type of fights, because you got a dude that's not gonna go easily. You're not gonna knock him out in the first round. It's possible, but you know, it's less likely. You know what I'm saying? So we shall see. Y'all let me know what I think. Let me know what y'all think. Let me slow down. Let's go.